when we first started Crunch Time, we named it Crunch Time because it was the time. Crunch time. It is now, and there is no other week than right now. If you're playing fantasy, you're in it, and we're here with you. I'm Tim Petrop. If you don't know, from the Broto brand, and if you don't know these two guys, then you're missing out because we're about to give you some fantasy fire. Themi, the Gridiron Greek, and Nick, whose last name, who I still can't pronounce. 7 years later, how long have we known each other? 6, 7 years.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Move on.
What's up, fellas? How you guys doing?
What's going on, man? I'm having a terrible morning. My throat is shot right now.
Uh-oh.
Dude, it's going around. Like, the reason why I'm coming to you with these headphones, probably the audio sucking in your speakers right now, is because the studio, people are sick at the studio. And then I was supposed to go to Michael's and record. His girlfriend is sick. And then I was supposed to go to my parents and record. My mom's sick. It's just like, yeah, man. I can't get away from these bugs, man. It's that time of year.
Yeah, 'tis the season.
But Themi, we appreciate you being here anyway. Themi, I was having some connection issues earlier today, and so was Nick. But we figured out a way. We made it happen. And Themi was ready to ride solo today, man. So shout out to Themi for stepping up. Even though he's sick, he was ready to ride solo. But we got a 3-man weave going. Don't forget, put your questions in the chat. We are here to answer them. But before we get started today on that, I do want to talk about the weather today because this is going to be the first time. This is going to be the first time that weather is probably going to be an issue in some of these games. So let's get started with the first game that's probably going to be an issue. We have the Jets and Houston. Now, me and Themi both coming to you live from New York, so we know already the rain has begun outside. So it's supposed to be very windy today. My phone gave me alerts like 6 times yesterday that it's just like, watch out, the wind is coming. Usually, the way that I look at it is 15 miles an hour and up. Well, not the way I look at it, the way that the math says it is. It's 15 miles an hour and up. It's going to start affecting your players. But really, the 20 mile per hour mark of wind is when you got to be like, maybe I should start benching players that I don't normally bench. So how are you guys looking at the weather on this rainy Sunday for this Jets-Houston game? Is it changing your perspective on it at all from what it have been in a nice day?
Well, I want to note that tickets are about $7 right now for that game. It could be just because the Jets absolutely suck. No offense,
yes.
but $7 to see C.J. Stroud. The rain must be pretty bad then. It's not picking up in my side of Queens just yet. Just a light drizzle, but man, I mean, I don't know if I'm really. Let's put it this way: maybe Tyler Conklin becomes a bench. As like he's kind of like that guy that you stream as like a tight end. I still don't think I bench like Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson, but it does kind of temper expectations, and it's a really bad week to like get this because you already have like a couple of big bye weeks. I know the Cardinals are probably the biggest one, and the Commanders. So like heading into the playoffs, this is kind of like one of those weeks where you make those tough decisions. Maybe there's another bench out there that Nick might be more confident in. I'm still very scared to like bench anyone good.
Yeah, I don't know. I try, and maybe I should change my philosophy, but I try really not to bench players like you were saying, except for like a fringe player based on weather. And like I'm in a tight end premium league where like I was gonna start Brevin Jordan. Maybe I pivot. Like maybe I'm still not sure. I think the matchup is good. I think the situation is pretty good. And in a game where is it more rain or is it more wind? Because rain doesn't really bother me that much. It's more about like high wind. If I'm seeing 30 mile per hour winds or something like that, then maybe pass catchers get taken down a notch. But if it's like wind gusts and like 15 mile per hour winds, I don't normally make a big adjustment like that. But I would say for the most part, like Demi said, I'm probably just, staying pat. I'm going to start Nico Collins. I'm going to start Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, obviously depending on the other options you have. But, I try not to make weather-based decisions just because as much as they try to predict it, sometimes it can also just be not right and it's not nearly as severe as it's expected to be. And then you look like a fool because you're benching someone who has no reason to be on your bench. So I normally just try to weather the storm, pun intended, and see how it plays out.
I like that one. I like that one. I will say this: it was like they were making it seem like it was going to be Armageddon earlier in the week, but the weather reports I'm looking at now are starting to lighten up as we're going forward. Like they were supposed to be crazy wind, but now they're only saying clouds up to 6 miles an hour for the Jets game. So cloudy and 6 miles an hour at the Jets game. So that's going to be a big deal because if you were a guy that was like, oh, I'd really love to start Damian Pierce, who scored a touchdown last week, or I'm going to stay away from C.J. Stroud, or I'm going to stay away from, if you need to play like a guy like Robert Woods or anything like that. I think that's the big shift. Also, speaking of shift, some injuries that I just want to go over just to make sure that you guys know, and then we're going to get to these questions. I see you, Fabian. See you, David. See you, Sivan. Shout out to you guys for your questions, and we're going to get to those in just 1 second. But there are some injuries that need to be reported, and I think the number one is Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco officially out. How are you guys looking at this backfield with Isaiah Pacheco out? You got CEH, who has been a non-factor this year. You have Jerick McKinnon, who around this time last year started winning people championships. So how are you feeling about this backfield in Kansas City in a big game against Buffalo?
So I feel more confident putting McKinnon in the back in my lineup just because he's already what his role is going to be. He's going to be the receiving back. They might put him in for some funny business in the red zone, a little shovel pass or some sort of trick play. And Edwards-Helaire, he's probably going to get more of the groundwork and maybe some occasional receiving work. But I kind of got to see it first if I'm going to start Edwards-Helaire. I mean, if you're in a pinch, I could see him being, getting double-digit carries and being a bit of a flex option. But, to have a big day, you're going to need him to score. And McKinnon at least has a floor with his receiving upside. And like you said, we saw him come alive at this point of the year last year. And they've come out and said they're trying to manage, him and Tony's workloads, and we'll see how things change in the stretch here, down the stretch. So I would say I'm feeling okay with flexing McKinnon. Maybe a fringe RB2, but I don't think either of them are going to be like a world beater in this matchup. And with Pacheco gone, it's just going to be a split backfield, and you kind of hope you start the one who scores, in my opinion. Yep. But in a potential shootout, we know how this Bills Chiefs, want to call it a rivalry, maybe how these games can go. I'm probably more comfortable starting McKinnon in this matchup than Edwards-Helaire.
That's interesting because I'm actually the opposite with you. Like, I understand that, like what you're saying with McKinnon's getting the receiving work, and he can still get like those big touchdown games, which is really what bolstered him throughout the playoffs. Like he had, basically a touchdown every game. He probably had like a 2 or 3 touchdown game, and it's gonna be a high scoring affair. It's probably one of the higher scoring games. I gotta pull it up just to double check. I mean, 49 over under. It's not the highest scoring, but projected pretty high. That being said, I think based on the workload that McKinnon has already gotten this year, he does have sort of a decent floor in like full PPR where he could get like 2-3 receptions, maybe a couple more, and then some decent yardage. But like his groundwork has just been non-existent. And in that blowout against Chicago, I think that was the first Taylor Swift game, if that's like a stat, where they were just blowing them out and they cut away from that game. If you were watching that on TV, they just cut away because it was so bad. Clyde Edwards-Helaire got 15 carries, 55 yards, and a touchdown. I do think that, like, if I were to bet on a touchdown, McKinnon would be like, maybe, I don't even know if he is a better bet. I think if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to get the groundwork, he's probably more in line for like a touchdown. Um, it's just hard because we haven't seen it this season, like what that split's going to look like.
Right.
I don't think either of these guys are going to be like phenomenal, like you said. I mean, it's not like you're going to be like deciding between these two in most leagues. Like, do I start this one?
Yeah.
Do I start that one? I think I would just slightly lean Hilaire just because he might have a decent ground game, and I just trust that workload a little bit more. But
Yeah.
I think it's an important question because it's a lot of guys are going to be starting these guys in a must-win matchup. So let's get into these start-sit questions because it's must-win this week. Fabian, good morning. Let's get these dubs. Hell yeah, started Zeke. Well done. Started. You have Kamara as your RB2. Very well done, especially with Taysom Hill looking like he's going to be out this week. Looks like it's going to be Kamara's goal line unless Jamal Williams does something that we're not expecting. Talking about a guy who just fell off the face of the earth, 17 touchdowns to not even being a factor after signing with a new team. Like Jamal Williams really fell off. But need a good solid floor for my flex, stuck between King Henry or Jerome Ford. All right, so I think this is a fairly easy King Henry. He's Derrick Henry. You're going to go with Derrick Henry. But here's my two little caveats to that. Number one, we haven't heard anything about Derrick Henry's status in terms of his concussion. Now we saw this week. I can't remember who it was, but he had no signs of concussions, and on Thursday he came in with signs of concussions, and now he's in the concussion protocol. I can't remember who exactly that was, but it happened this week to somebody. I think it was a lower level player. So Derrick Henry can show concussion symptoms at any time, and if you saw him, he got knocked out for like a half a second on that play. So he's on Monday night. I'm gonna ride with Derrick Henry. Here's another thing the caveat though, they're like 13-point underdogs. And in games where Derrick Henry is not, if the Titans are not favored, Derrick Henry does not tend to do as well in games that they're favored. That being said, it's week 14. You've been riding Derrick Henry here. I'm riding with you, my guy. I need a win in my home league, a very, very competitive home league. Second in points, but 8th in the standings.
Oh, no.
It's one of those years.
Oh, no.
One of those. So I need a win to get in, and I need someone to lose. But I'm riding Derrick Henry, and I'm hoping that he's going to bring me to that. How do you guys feel about this question, Henry or Ford? Because I don't think Ford's a terrible play. It's just that he got kind of dissed last week. They worked Pierre Strong into the lineup. Kareem Hunt might be out, so that's a big one. But I'm going to ride with Henry.
Yeah, I would probably go Henry too, and I know that it is a good stat in the games that they're losing and how he kind of falls off the face of the earth. But it's just the type of player, man. I just can't put on my bench, especially at this point in the year. I mean, this is the part of the year where Derrick Henry is prime Derrick Henry, and he makes my Fade the Beast article from like 4 years ago look absolutely trash. So like, I've had a vendetta against Derrick Henry for years now, and I've just been wrong pretty much every time. So, but you gotta start him, I think, and maybe it's lazy analysis from me, but it's just the type of player that I'd rather see put a dud on my bench than blow up. I mean, put a dud on my starting lineup than blow up on my bench. And Derrick Henry's the kind of player that, every time I'm on the show, I talk about it takes one. It takes one type of players, and it takes one type of player that even if he goes 17 carries for 12 yards, he can just make that 18th carry a 70-yard touchdown, and then you have a good day from him. So I think Ford has a decent floor with his receiving work, and he's shown the ability to also make big plays. But outside of like a 30-yard receiving touchdown last week, he did pretty much nothing. And I'm rocking with King Henry on this one.
The app also has King Henry by a very slight margin, so if 55% in half point PPR. So do with that what you will. So the app says go Derrick Henry. Yeah, you know what bothers me, man? The biggest misconception, and you figure at this point in his career, people would realize this, is that Derrick Henry is some sort of bruiser. Like, no, he has that ability, but this guy is a big play threat. He always has been in his career, always will be. Yep. He's just tall and big, so people just assume that he's a bruiser. Not the case. Femi, how you feeling about it? Did you already give your answer?
No. I wanted to say, like, strictly in terms of answering the question, I think Ford is a better floor play. Like,
Mm,
if
true.
you are strictly looking for floor, that being said, you had a great game from Zeke. Like, he must have gotten at least 22 points. I
20.
think
I
I
thought he
broke
got like 27 or something
20.
like that.
Yeah, I guess it depends on your settings. Like, at least 20 points in basically every league type, and as high as like 27, like Vic said. Um, so I don't know if you really need that floor unless you're really saying like I just want like a little extra like safety because I already got my blow up game. I don't need my blow up game. But I would not bench Derrick Henry. Like the Miami Dolphins defense isn't that great. In terms of strictly rushing production, they're eighth in true matchup rank. They're the eighth easiest or the eighth most giving for fantasy points for running backs. And yeah, I understand that they're massive underdogs. Tajay Spears is probably going to get like a ton of work as the game progresses, but the Miami Dolphins defense like isn't that good. It's very susceptible. We saw I think the Carolina Panthers are kind of giving them like trouble to start that game against them, and then it was like a 42-21 blowout in the end. So I think like there's a lot of opportunity for Derrick Henry to just like you said, he just needs one chance to kind of get that big touchdown. If you are so set on strictly going with the floor, I do think Jerome Ford will give you like an RB2 finish at worst, barring injury. Whereas Derrick Henry, I could see him being like an RB4, but I still don't feel like I can justifiably bench him, even in like a sort of minus game script situation. Um, and I feel like your running back's already so good that like Kamara might just give you a good enough floor where you can start King Henry.
Yeah.
Um,
I just
it
think
depends on how set you are with that.
I just think it's a bit cute. I just think it's a bit cute. Like Derrick Henry scored 4 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks. Like he's, you know, he's had more boom
If they're gonna
games
score a
than
touchdown, it's
bust
gonna be Henry.
games. Yeah, yeah. Like, and I think his floor is something like 6 points. Like, and that's like absolute worst case scenario. It's not great, but the ceiling is too high, and I understand it is a floor question, but you got to start Derrick Henry. Long story short.
Steven Leg. Next question. One time for the kickers, legs. They have legs. 2 of them. Some of them even have 2. Full PPR, sit 2. Puka, Flowers, Chuba, Reed, Ridley, CEH. I'm guessing that's Jordan Reed. What? You think it's a different Reed?
No, I thought you were trying to guess what CEH was.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't know Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Like we were just talking about him. Like, is there like Charles Edwards Humphreys like that's available?
I heard Charles Edward Humphreys has a great matchup this week. But all right, so let's see. We're sitting 2 here. Right off the bat, I think the weather's going to be a little nicer and for the Rams game than people completely. And just breaking right now, just a little breaking news. Trevor Lawrence will play. So Trevor Lawrence is going to play this week. Fantastic news for a guy like me who's playing Evan Ingram. They're playing the Browns, and it was supposed to be a really rainy, shitty game. But it looks like the weather report is a little better as of 2 hours ago, according to CBS. So I'll get that weather report if you guys talk about this. But sit to Puka, Flowers, Chuba, Reed, Ridley, CEH. Right off the bat, my first 2 that are just coming out to me would be Reed and CEH. That's just the first ones that come up to me. Here's the reason. Puka in that game, no Higbee. He's going to be involved. I'm expecting a big game. Big game is at least a decent game, a good floor from Puka. Zay Flowers, he's going to be the main target on the outside in that Ravens game. Chuba Hubbard is the interesting one here. I think you're going to ride with Calvin Ridley with Trevor Lawrence. I don't think that's an issue, especially with Christian Kirk out. And man, Chuba Hubbard, 25 carries in his first game with the new coaching staff. I think that's something you just cannot ignore. It's something that, all right, if you're talking about Jaden Reed, yes, Christian Watson is out, but does Romeo Doubs get most of the work? Does Dontavian Wicks hit a big shot? Is it Aaron Jones out of the backfield? Is it – you just don't know. There's too many layers around him. And then CEH, you don't even know if he's going to be the guy. You don't know if it's going to go to Jerick McKinnon. We talked about him. So that's where I'm leaning right off the bat. Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? Talk to me.
Um, uh, yeah. I think what you were saying, Puka and Flowers have to be in the lineup. Ridley sucked last week without Christian Kirk. I know it because he was against me in main event, and I was really excited, and I was tracking it. And there's this whole skeleton key thing they're talking about every time Zay Jones is in the lineup, how Ridley does better. And I'm not gonna try to act like I have some like process here exactly, but like maybe Christian Kirk allows them to put more coverage onto Ridley, and maybe it's not exactly, we would think Christian Kirk is out, Ridley gets more targets, more work, better production, and that's probably the case, and I'm probably starting him. It's not a confident start for me, especially against Cleveland, especially with Trevor Lawrence seemingly on one leg. His ability to extend the play makes him a better quarterback, makes the offense a better offense. So I think we might not see as much of that this week. And I think it could be tough sledding for the Jaguars, honestly. But with guys like this, I think you got to use Ridley. And then I'm probably sitting Chuba Hubbard and Edwards-Helaire, just because the Saints' run defense is traditionally pretty good. How they've been lately, I'm not 100% sure.
They haven't been great.
I know
Yeah,
in
they've been stumbling a lot.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough.
So it's just like you said with, Monday Night Football, one of two Monday Night Football games, which is interesting at the exact same time. But, playing the Giants on Monday night, I like Jaden Reed, especially with no Christian Watson. So just by process of elimination, I think it's Edwards-Helaire and Chuba Hubbard for me. But, like you were saying, Tim, like with 25 touches or carries, I don't know if it was touches or carries, it might have been more touches, but, he did have a amazing workload and produced pretty well. So, but for me, it's between Chuba, Jaden Reed, and Edwards-Helaire, and I think I sit the running backs in that situation, but it's tough. Demi, what do you got?
Man, I don't want to be like too cute and say sit Puka, but I will say like Cooper Cup is my bust of the week. Granted, he like hasn't produced outside of like that one touchdown last week. I think Puka can overcome a very difficult matchup, like just talent wise, like Amari Cooper did when they put up it was like a 33-31 win over the Ravens. Like they're not entirely like unstoppable, Baltimore. But it is a tough matchup. But I think when it comes down to these guys, I'd rather start Puka and kind of hope that the talent wins out. I will say Clyde is my bench, but like by far. Do I think he could get like 70 total yards and a touchdown? Sure. But I think all of these guys could like easily beat that, and they probably should.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Ridley not with the touchdown, but whatever. Um, then it comes down to Chuba Hubbard and Jaden Reed, like you guys were like discussing. And I think the way to beat the Giants is to just like run down the middle and like just destroy them there. It's not like their corners are that great. Like Adoree Jackson is beatable, Deontay Banks is beatable, Cordell Flock can be pretty good at times. But man, I feel like anyone, like I think Tim was saying, anyone could just go off in this game,
Mm-hmm.
and they could just kind of run away with it. So I'm not very faithful, very hopeful in terms of Jaden Reed's like floor. Whereas I think Chuba Hubbard against a Saints defense that's kind of like been falling right now, maybe take a shot on him as like kind of a decent floor play and bench Reed. But I don't think there's necessarily like a strictly wrong answer there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to bench Reed and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I'm in agreement on that. Those are my two benches as well.
Fair enough.
All right, this is a little bit of an interesting one, so I just want a real quick answer because the person who lives downstairs from me, this is my living room. Obviously, this is not the studio I'm usually at. Can hear what I'm saying, so he wants to know Calvin Ridley or D Hop.
I'd probably go D Hop.
I'm gonna go D Hop. I'm gonna go D Hop slightly over Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I mean,
just very, very slightly.
Yeah, I would say D Hop, like with that expected game script and him just being the only viable receiver on that team. Yeah, I would go D Hop there.
What do you think to them? I think Themi
Muted?
is it me or I think Themi muted himself. Classic.
I
I
can't
was
believe
so
this.
undecided. Okay, I'm gonna go with D Hop. He's like hyper targeted in that offense. I think he has a better chance at scoring too.
3 for 3 D Hop, Kevin. All right, let's get into this. David said, "Good morning, boys. If you already covered this, we did not. We got it. McKinnon, we covered him, but we'll talk about him more. Versus Garrett Wilson versus Jaden Reed. If this had been a game with Tim Boyle as the starting quarterback, I would have definitely said go with McKinnon. I mean, I'm for sure. But Zach Wilson is back, and
Yep.
Garrett Wilson has been a solid floor play with Zach Wilson. So I'm going to say McKinnon if you need a bigger game. But I think Garrett Wilson can get you a nice floor of 10 to 13 half PPR points. And I think that you can ride with Garrett Wilson with some confidence. So if you need a floor play, I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. But if you're like a 20-point underdog and you need a big play, then McKinnon is the guy who has the ability in that offense with the opportunity that we're assuming he's going to get. We got to assume that he's going to have the highest ceiling. So McKinnon, if you need a ceiling, Wilson, if you need a floor. How you guys feeling about that?
Yeah. Normally for me, when it comes to a flex decision like this in half PPR, I normally favor the running back. But when the running back in this circumstance is normally a product of his receiving game, I think I'm with you. I think I go Garrett Wilson. He's just the best player there, and he's I'm going Garrett Wilson. I think he can have the highest floor too, believe it or not. We maybe haven't seen it, but he could go 9 for 90 in a touchdown if he wanted to. I mean, like,
Ceiling then.
oh yeah, sorry, yeah. My bad.
I was confused for a second. I was like, that's what we just said, Bick.
No.
What are you listening to?
Listen, I wasn't ready for this. I'm flustered. But yeah, I would go Garrett Wilson here.
That's my thinking as well. I'm surprised Garrett Wilson has not been a half PPR wide receiver one all season. I thought his ceiling would be a little higher than that, but touchdowns just haven't been available. But I agree with what you guys said. McKinnon is like the Hail Mary play.
All right. The leg again says worried about the weather with Rams Ravens. Ridley against the Browns D with a hurt Lawrence and CE McKinnon split. I don't think there's a question there. I think he's just like commenting on what we said.
Yeah. I think it's just context to his question.
Yeah, for sure. Lawrence is going to play. It is to be noted the Browns D has been worse as of late, but that also coincides with Denzel Ward being out. Looks like Denzel Ward is going to play. For those who don't know, Denzel Ward, their number one corner, former 4th overall pick. So very talented corner. That needs to be considered. Also, need to fill in the last flex for PPR, says Fabian. Raheem Mostert or Jerick McKinnon with his upside. Look, I like Jerick McKinnon's upside this week. I would play him if I was in some situations. There is 0% chance I'm playing him over Raheem Mostert, who's been an absolute stud.
Yeah, I mean, I know with the return of Achane and it's seemingly the splits have been in Achane's favor when they've both been on the field and healthy, but I'm starting either. I mean, it's just a 1-2 punch, and so is McKinnon and so is Edwards-Helaire. So it's like the 1-2 punch I want to take is Mostert and Achane over McKinnon and Edwards-Helaire. So I agree. I'm gonna go Mostert on this one. Regardless of the opponent, regardless of the game script, I'm just putting him in pretty much every single week at this point.
3 for 3, Debbie?
Yep. Always Mostert.
All right, let's go on to the next one. Quarterback decision. Big one here by David Arce. Lamar, Stroud, or should I let Russ cook? I think this is a tough one because Stroud has been so good, but he's playing a Jets defense that has shut down quarterbacks, shut down receivers, just has ruined fantasy days for those guys. And it's going to be an ugly weather game, not as ugly as we thought it was going to be, but an ugly weather game nonetheless. I lean Lamar pretty heavily here. He's in a very good matchup. I'm gonna get his true matchup ranking up in a second, but he's in one of the top 5 matchups that you could have for a quarterback. So I'm gonna stick with Lamar here. How you guys feeling about that?
Yeah, me too. Like I was saying earlier, I tend to stray away from quarterbacks and pass catchers when it's wind, not as much when it's rain. And Baltimore right now looks to be much more of a rain situation than a wind situation. Winds are like 8 to 10 miles per hour. I'm not pressed about that. I'm going to go Lamar pretty easily. And that's that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if the Jets get them any interceptions, but they are pretty locked down. I think they're like one of the hardest in true matchup rank, and like that just makes sense. Their corners are amazing. Um, it's got to be Lamar. Like the way you beat the Jets is like by running on them anyway. Like their run defense is just not like that great. Um, and I don't think the weather's doing that any favors. I would not let Russ cook, even though he has a great matchup. I'm betting on a guy who should still be in the MVP race, Lamar Jackson. I mean,
Mm.
it's a good matchup. It's a very good matchup against LA if their defense sucks.
Yeah, LA is again. I'm bringing up the true matchup rank. Sorry, the internet in my apartment has
They're
been giving me
seventh.
issues all day. Seventh overall, and should be noted, fourth to the rushing quarterback, which is exactly what Lamar Jackson is. In case you do not watch football, 100 107% points over average to the running back. 5.1 points scored by rushing quarterbacks a game.
Oh
Like to put
boy.
that in perspective, that's a rushing touchdown basically per game or 50 yards per game for rushing quarterback. So fantastic matchup for Lamar.
I gotta bet the rushing over. Oh my gosh, I gotta do it right now.
I think they take into account how good Lamar Jackson is. You know,
I gotta put the rushing over. All right. I wonder what the rushing over is, though. It's got to be like 35 yards.
I'll pull it up.
47 and a half.
Is it
47 and a half. Jesus Christ.
And I'm
Oh my
smashing it.
I
20
You're
bucks
smashing over.
now.
There you go. All right. Gotta flex one. Ridley, Rice, and Dubs. Ridley has had good games recently with Kirk out. Maybe Trevor. I wonder if it has a similar effect to Zay being out full PPR.
That's what I was saying.
Nick mentioned that, right? We mentioned that like Ridley has kind of been that guy that if there's another guy to take stuff away from him, he's been more effective. Also a rain game. Also Trevor Lawrence is hurt. So I do understand where you're coming from here, especially because Romeo Dobbs in a smash spot. The Giants have been there. They've given up the fourth most points to wide receivers in the entire league. I'm going to pull up their true matchup rank right now. The Giants, they are the fifth best matchup for wide receivers, 35.4 points per game. That's 20% over average, according to true matchup rank. So they've been susceptible. No Christian Watson. We've seen Romeo Doubs. If you listen to the Patreon pod this week, Romeo Doubs is one of those confidence plays that Michael had. He mentioned the amount of targets he gets when Christian Watson is out. He's gotten as many as 12 targets in a game with Christian Watson out. So you got to love those numbers. You got to love those odds. But at the same time, you're going to sit a guy like Ridley, who has been good. You're going to sit a guy like Rice, who's has been up and down. The thing about Rice is he's not on the field as much as I would like. So if I had to rank these guys as of right now, it would be slight lean Ridley, I think, just because of the fact that Trevor Lawrence is still in the game. If Trevor Lawrence was not playing, I'd go Dubs, but very slightly Ridley over Dubs, and then Rice a third in that list. How are you guys feeling about that?
I'll let them go because I have an opinion that's probably going to be different than both of you. So,
Let them.
It's hard to like bench Ridley, even with like the context that you guys give. That like it's like shouting my face, like just bench him, just like bench him. But man, I think I would still flex him regardless. Like Trevor Lawrence is healthy. It may be like one of the most difficult matchups, but I feel like just by sheer volume alone, he might get it. Man, this is a really tough one because like there's like downsides to all these guys. I mean, there's very few players that have no downsides, but I like, man, it's like a real snubber. Yeah, it's a tough one. That's why it's crunch time, man.
I sat Deontay Johnson, who scored 13.5 PPR points for Romeo Doubs. And while I am very disappointed that Deontay Johnson had a decent game, I also am going into this week with the expectations that Dobbs is going to outscore him. So that shows you how I feel about Dobbs.
All right, that's fair. Yeah, I think he probably needs a touchdown to do that. Because hitting 100 yards is gonna be pretty difficult, even if you have like a great matchup like this. I guess I understand why you're saying Dobbs is like the guy. I think I'll defer to you and go with Dobbs here.
The crazy thing is I'm gonna go Rashee Rice. So
Oh,
he's got 8 catches in back-to-back games. I think he's got like something like 19 targets in the past 2 games. And he's just been coming along better and better over the past, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks. I mean, he's just been producing at, you know, maybe a back end wide receiver 2 levels with the possibility of like a top end wide receiver 2 upside, maybe wide receiver 1. And they're just force feeding him the ball. I mean, his route tree isn't magnificent. At least last week it wasn't. I was against him and I was just watching like screen after screen after screen, like little dump offs. But they're trying to put the ball in his hands. They're trying to get him to make plays. And I think, we see this happen with rookie wide receivers every year where there's the ones like Puka that break out in the beginning and everybody's infatuated with them. And then there's the ones like Amon-Ra St. Brown who absolutely take over the back half of the season. And I think we're seeing Rashee Rice become that player who is arguably more reliable than Travis Kelce right now for fantasy purposes. And I think it's evident with the way that they're trying to make sure he gets the ball in his hands and the way that they're succeeding in getting the ball in his hands. So I'm going Rashee Rice in what I hope to be a banger of a game this week with the Bills and the Chiefs. And maybe, like I said earlier, maybe this is one of those being too cute moments. But I do fear Ridley with no Kirk, which sounds crazy. I get it. No Kirk, an injured Lawrence, and the Browns defense. I'm not sure that's an awesome combination for success. And then Dubs, I had him on my fantasy team and traded him away at some point, but he has an affinity for the end zone. People don't look at him and thinking that he's some touchdown scorer, but it is what he is. And I just think that without that touchdown, like Femi said, I think the floor is, or the ceiling is limited. And I think Rice is going to get enough volume to make up for the fact that he may not find the end zone.
Just for the record, the app has it ranked Rice, Dubs, Ridley. My rankings has it ranked Rice, Dubs, Ridley. So for whatever that's worth, those are the thoughts on that one. So good luck, Charles. Hope you make the right decision there. Steve Bricky says Dynasty playoffs need help in my super flex spot. T-Law, London, or Jerome Ford. Super flex got to go with the quarterback. The quarterback's floor is 5 receptions and 60 yards and a touchdown for Drake London. So I'm going with T-Law in the super flex.
Yeah, it's valid.
I think even in a very difficult matchup, like a pretty low end quarterback 2 is almost always the better play, unless you have like a McCaffrey who's not going to be your super flex anyway.
Charles, is Breece Hall still a better option than Jerry Jeudy, Noah Brown, and Quentin Johnston? Yes, I think so. Especially because Jerry Jeudy sucks. I think that's something that needs to be considered for sure. Noah Brown, I think Noah Brown is one guy. Like if you have a chance to stash Noah Brown, if you're going to the playoffs, if you're and you can stash him, I think Noah Brown is one of those guys where he's not gonna produce this week, but you're gonna see him on the field. You're going to see him get targets. You're going to see him kind of step up in that offense. We've seen him without Tank Dell before. We've seen him with guys missing in that offense before, and he's taken control. He's been a guy who scored 160 yards in a game. So I would stash Noah Brown. I think he's a post-hype sleeper for next week. But I think Breece Hall is still the play over all these guys because of the pass work he gets. And there is something to be said about, even though Zach Wilson sucks, the return of Zach Wilson is better for the offense overall. Because Tim Boyle was I am a better quarterback than Tim Boyle. 1,000%. There's
agree.
2 teams we're talking about here, and I'm the better one in terms of quarterback.
Nice. Yeah, no. Go Breece Hall, please. Thank you.
Looks like Femi's in agreement as well. All right, Dominic Martin. Good morning, Dominic. Always in the chat. Always a pleasure. Devin Singletary, Cooper Kupp, Alexander Madison, half PPR, flex spot. I need one. This is a tough one again. Devin Singletary. You saw the return of Dameon Pierce last week, and that resulted in a split backfield again. I'm going to go to the exact splits that we're talking about. Devin Singletary, only 33% of the rushing work, despite being on the field for 46% of snaps. Dameon Pierce, 38%. He of the snaps, but 62% of the rushing work, 15 carries to Devin Singletary's 8, including the goal line carry, the all-important goal line carry. I know this is a good matchup against the Jets, but I'm going to sit him in favor of these two guys. Cooper Kupp, like you guys said, he's kind of been a bust. Not kind of, he's absolutely been a bust since returning. It's a tough defense and a tough matchup. Probably going to be shadowed by the number 1 corner, so that is something to consider there, even though his name is Cooper Kupp. On the other hand, Alexander Mattison, coming off a bye week, I think that's something that's interesting because before the bye week, we saw him kind of start losing snaps to Ty Chandler. But with that being said, still got the majority of the opportunities. Does have a good matchup here. I'm going to go to his. I'm actually going to go to the start sit tool for this one and see what the start sit tool says about Alexander Mattison versus Cooper Kupp here. The start sit tool says in half PPR, slight advantage to Cooper Kupp, even though the Carolina matchup is juicy, very juicy. Man, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of lean Alexander Mattison, man.
The Vikings are playing the Raiders this week.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I believe the start sit tool is looking at next week for some reason. So we need to fire Cass and get someone new.
I will tell Cass right now.
Go ahead, guys. Saying the Giants were playing the Seahawks, and I was like, "That's not right. Something glitched."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got what's going on. I'm telling Cass right now. You guys take it away.
But yeah, I can't. I'm not starting Singletary anymore. That ship has sailed, I think. Even though I just don't. What he had like 6 carries last week and 1 reception. Like I think, teams. I don't know. Teams are goofy. They have like weird loyalty to players that suck and then just remain loyal. And I feel like Devin Singletary ate while Dameon Pierce was out of the lineup. And then Dameon Pierce came back. They gave it 1 game and they said, okay, we're going to give it back to you, my king. So I think Devin Singletary is a low floor, low ceiling option. And then I know the Ravens are a tough matchup. Cooper Kupp has been incredibly disappointing, but I don't think Madison has been anything special either. And I think I would take the potential higher upside playing Cooper Kupp than Alexander Mattison in this situation. And that might be me being loyal to a scrub. I'm not sure, kind of like the Texans, but I mean, we saw what Cooper Kupp had like 6 for 38 and a touchdown. The last time we saw him play, I think. So it's not, I mean, it's viable. Madison, I don't know. I'm worried about that split. And I just think I was in on Madison in the preseason, and now I think he's mid as fuck. So I think I would just go Cooper Kupp in this circumstance, but it's close between him and Madison. I don't think Singletary's a factor for me.
Yeah, I think Singletary's got to be the obvious sit here. How you feeling, Demi?
That's completely the opposite to what I'm thinking. I'm actually big on Devin Singletary. Well, not that big. It is a pretty good matchup, but like you said, the splits like really didn't do him any favors. He got like 8 carries in a very plus matchup. He gets another plus matchup in weather conditions that like theoretically should do better things for him. Promote more running than passing, I guess. Madison, like you said, just has rarely been a factor. It's like Cam Akers and Ty Chandler became like the guys over him. Cooper Kupp is my bust of the week. I don't think he's going to produce very much. I think he literally needs a touchdown to save himself, or he needs to show us something that he hasn't shown since those 2 weeks when he came back from injury and he put up like 100 yards against 2 really soft defenses. I don't think it's going to happen this week against the Ravens cornerbacks. I wouldn't personally bet on it. And like, I don't think Devin Singletary has that high of a ceiling, even in a plus matchup in the rain. But man, I feel like he just barely like ekes out over these guys. But I understand why, like, you guys look at him and say this is like, an 8-point player at best. So I kind of understand it. It's just like all 3 of these options are kind of disgusting, even though Cooper Kupp like theoretically looked like a stud to start his season in week 5. But yeah, I'm going Singletary just barely.
Oh, so was that 3 different answers? I said Madison, you said Cup, and
Oh,
you're
you said
saying
Madison? Oh my God.
Madison. Oh my goodness,
If,
that
if
is.
I had to
I'm
concede to
sorry.
one
I'm sorry.
just to break a tie, I would say probably Madison over Singletary. I
I'm
just
not
don't
gonna lie.
think. Yep.
I'm gonna say the exact thing. Like if I had to concede, I'd concede the Cup. I can't play Singletary matchup.
So I guess Singletary is just not the guy this week. All right.
But Themi could prove us wrong. He's done it before. All right,
Yep.
Benjamin Hare was good. Morning, man. Jaden Reed, CEH, Brandon Cooks, Gabe Davis. I'm gonna start this one because I think it's an obvious one. I'm going Brandon Cooks. I mentioned he was my confidence play this week in the Patreon episode. I do not have any worries about starting Brandon Cooks. I think the fact that Gabe Davis is playing the Chiefs. Yeah, last time he put up a big game against the Chiefs, 4 touchdowns. I don't know if you guys saw that game. It was only one of the greatest games of all time. But Jaden Reed, again, you don't know where the targets are going. I think Dobbs is the big one there. CEH, you don't know how that's going to split up. And Brandon Cooks is playing Philly. They're going to have to score. They're going to have to throw. Philly is, in terms of true matchup ranking, they are the absolute worst matchup for running backs and the second best matchup for wide receivers. Dak is on a heater. The Cowboys' offense is on a heater. They're in a great matchup. I'm going Brandon Cooks, and I'm not looking back. How are you guys feeling about this one?
Agreed.
Yep, I'm with you.
Let's go to the next one. Konstantin Gonatsa, somehow the second Greekest name in the chat. Happy football Sunday, fellas. Kalimerasas. Do I start Josh Dobbs, Baker, or Geno? This is an interesting one. Josh Dobbs was going from this guy's going to win MVP like 3 weeks ago to is he going to start this week? So Josh Dobbs, obviously, I think he brings upside, but for me, Baker, Geno. I think Geno would be the obvious answer here if he wasn't hurt. And there is something to be said about the fact that Adam Schefter reported that his groin injury is a 2-week injury, but that he's playing through it anyway. I have Gardner at Cincinnati ranked highest of these guys. So because of that, I'm going to say Gardner Minshew.
Where the hell's Gardner Minshew here?
Gardner Minshew is not in the question.
You know what? I'm confusing my short, scrappy white guy.
Players now.
Yeah, I meant Baker Mayfield. Sorry to confuse my short, scrappy white guys there. Yeah, so how you guys feeling? I'm going to lean Baker slightly, but Josh Dobbs has the upside. This is one of those I feel like gut plays because these 3 are really evenly set up this week.
So for me, healthy or not, it would have never been Geno because they're playing the Niners, and I don't think they can hang. But he is hurt, so regardless, I'm Geno's not an option here. And then for me, it's between Dobbs and Baker, and I'm probably leaning Dobbs. I like his rushing upside. It provides, if you're doing a 4-point touchdown league, there's weeks where he'll give you a touchdown on the ground without even scoring a touchdown. I like that a lot. He gets Jefferson back. I like that they're coming off a bye week. I like the matchup versus the Raiders. I think I'm going Josh Dobbs here over Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, when I originally saw this question, I thought Baker has by far the best matchup. He was QB 11 when he played the Falcons last time, and I think this could realistically be a shootout with injuries piling up for the Bucks. Jamel Dean is out. I think Vita Vea is out. He might just be questionable. There's a bunch of injuries, kind of like that Colts game against the Bucks, where it was just a bunch of injuries. That being said, Justin Jefferson back is going to be massive. And man, this Raiders pass defense is pretty scary at times. They've got some guys there, and they can kind of limit upside. But man, Dobbs, he could just be a top 5 QB without really doing much because he adds a lot on the ground. He ran for 5 touchdowns in a row, and man, he's got his weapons back. I think 2 or 3 touchdowns is well within his range of outcomes. And he's not going to have 4 interceptions like that Bears game again, I hope. So, man, I actually slightly do lean Dobbs over Baker for some reason.
I think that you guys have brought me over. I think I'm going to go Dobbs in that matchup. All right, Alejandro got an ugly question with Kyler on by. Jake Browning, Flacco, or Desmond Ritter? You're not lying. I think I'm going to go Browning here. He does have a pretty good matchup. He played well last week. I'm kind of going to ride that heater. Joe Flacco is number 3 for me. Desmond Ritter, you never know what you're going to get from him, but there is a chance that he runs a touchdown in against this Buccaneers defense. But I think that I'm going to go with Jake Browning with the unknown upside for the rookie. Not the rookie, the first-year starter. In an offense that he had command of last week, we saw him have command of that offense. I'm going to ride that.
Yeah, I'll go Browning as well.
Yeah, it's fine by me. I was going to say Flacco, but I'm not going to make an argument for Joe Flacco in week 14. I'm just not going to do it. So I will concede and go to Browning.
The A team. I got a few today. Full PPR dynasty. Need a dub to make the playoffs. Stroud versus Mahomes. Oh my God, who would have thought that would ever be a question? And Jake Ferguson versus George Kittle. So first things first, I think you got to go Mahomes in this game. They're playing the Bills. They're going to be up for the game. Stroud playing the Jets. The Jets have been the worst matchup for quarterbacks. So if you're playing the matchups and you're playing the guys, like I'm going to go Mahomes. I know CJ Stroud has been a better fantasy player this year. I'm still going Mahomes. Jake Ferguson versus George Kittle is a little harder for me because I could see it on both sides. If I just checking my rankings to see who I have ranked higher, I probably have George Kittle ranked higher. The problem is with George Kittle is that he can really make you pay in terms of he could really shit the bed. But he is playing Seattle. Seattle is a fantastic matchup in terms of true matchup rankings, and I do believe that he already took Seattle to school earlier this year. Let me go to the game log and just check that out. But
no, he didn't. He was the tight end 30 in half PPR.
Oh, okay. So not a good matchup. Not good.
I thought Seattle was a bad matchup for tight ends.
Well, Seattle used to be a great matchup, which is why I think at the beginning of the season, everyone started Tyler Higbee, and then he did absolutely nothing against them. In terms of like strictly statistics, like they still seem to be a pretty decent matchup. It just seems like it doesn't really happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
So would you guys go Jake Ferguson? Because the Eagles, are acceptable. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I was already thinking Ferguson before we even got into the tight end stuff. I think Philly's a better matchup, and that's another should be a fun divisional shootout. I'm hoping, and I think they're like something like 13th versus the tight end in true matchup rank the last time I checked. And Ferguson has just been playing pretty strong football generally, and Kittle, we know how Kittle can be the odd man out in that offense. And I like the floor of Jake Ferguson. And I also think, it's hard to have a ceiling better than George Kittle. We know his yak ability. We know what he can do with the ball in his hands. But for me, I'm gonna lean Mahomes as well, and then Jake Ferguson.
Yeah, I'm also on the Mahomes train. I'm also going to go Jake Ferguson. Like the 49ers put up 42 points last week. I was hoping for a George Kittle touchdown because that was part of my Broto bets. He still performed. He overperformed. He beat his over-under. But he still didn't do that great. And that's just because they were exploiting Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk scored. Christian McCaffrey scored. Juwan Jennings scored. The Eagles are one of the best tight end matchups in the league. In terms of true matchup rank, it's not that great. Like you said, it's about 13th. But they're allowing the second highest DVOA to tight ends. And the last time that Jake Ferguson played them, let's pull it up. He had 10 targets, season high, 7 receptions, tied for season high, 91 yards, season high, and he scored a touchdown. He was the half PPR tight end 5. He is second in red zone targets behind CeeDee Lamb. And this game probably has the highest over-under of any game. If I were to bet on anyone to have both a floor and a ceiling in this game, there's probably no one better than Jake Ferguson. In this entire week, basically.
You guys eloquently switched me sides again. I'm switching sides again. I think I'm going to go.
There's nothing wrong with George Kittle. He could catch 3 touchdowns and it's nothing. Yep. It's just like you said, he could drop a 1-point game, and it's it's not that he's bad. It's just that the offense.
It's just how it goes in the offense. Yep.
All right, fellas, we got 4 minutes left, but we are going to get to every question. That is the crunch time guarantee. Thank you guys for dropping these questions and hanging with us. Pick 2, Nico Collins, Jaden Reed. Adam Thielen, Rashi Rice, and Devontae Smith. Oh, Devontae Smith out there. Like, this was easy right until I read Devontae Smith. Here's the thing with Devontae Smith. His numbers really, really suffer when Dallas Goedert's in the lineup. When Dallas Goedert's not in the lineup, Devontae Smith is a smash play. But Dallas Goedert's playing in this game. I think Nico Collins is also usually a smash play. He's going to be matched up against Sauce Gardner and the New York Jets. Adam Thielen, he's become an afterthought. Jalen Reed, we mentioned him a bunch of times. A lot of Jaden Reed questions. He's a boomer bust type player. Rashi Rice, he's a guy I like in this game. I have him ranked as a wide receiver too. I'd go Devontae Smith and Rashi Rice, but my second combination there is Rashi Rice and Nico Collins. So either way, I'm playing Rashi Rice. I'm going to go with Devontae Smith because it's going to be a shootout against the Cowboys, and I'm going to ride that. I'm going to ride that game script. So I'm going to go with Rashi Rice and Devontae Smith. How you guys feeling about it?
Yeah, I understand the narrative with Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and all that business. It's just like I don't know how I can bench him this week. So I'm gonna go Devontae Smith and I'm gonna go Nico Collins. I understand the sauce treatment for sure. I just think even with that, I think he's a pretty good football player, and I think the volume will be there. I think it's beatable. So for me, I'm going Devontae Smith and Nico Collins. I totally understand getting Rice in that equation, and if I had to pick a third option, Rice would be in there. So I think I got to keep Devontae Smith in there for sure, and then for me, it's between Nico Collins and Rice.
Yeah, it's the same for me. Devontae Smith is the guy, and then we haven't seen Nico Collins with CJ Stroud have a matchup this difficult, so it's going to be kind of difficult to see how they overcome this, but I'm still going to trust the talent. I'll slightly lean Nico Collins over Rashi Rice, but I feel like any combination of those three guys could result in like 25 points per player. Like,
and something about, we've had all these Jaden Reed questions. I personally I've become a big Jaden Reed fan. I did not know who the fuck this man was. And then he's making plays. Like you say he's a boomer bust option. I feel like he's got a pretty decent floor with also a pretty decent ceiling in the back half of the season, kind of like a similar Rashi Rice situation. So I don't think he should be discounted at the rate that we've discounted him. So to anybody that is questioning Jaden Reed, I don't blame you. Just putting that out there because we haven't really mentioned him as a start in any of these situations, but I do think he can have a big game. That being said, I still think it's Devontae Smith and then your choice of Nico Collins versus Rice. Yeah.
So I should mention the start sit tool on the app is working. It's just glitching on the matchups. So the rankings are correct. It's just the matchups are glitching, and Cass is going to be on that in a second. This is a tough one. Alejandro, sit one. Pollard, a chain, Javonte Williams. So you're starting a chain. Michael mentioned that whenever a chain starts, he's been a top 5. Whenever he started and finished the game, he's been a top 5 running back. So whenever he's got more than one carry in a game. So you can't sit that. So now you're going to talk about Pollard and Javonte Williams, and you have like these two. You got to weigh it. You got Pollard, who is in a better offense, better player, in my opinion, in a more positive game script that probably is going to feature him. Javonte Williams is in a game where he has a great matchup against the Chargers, but he's struggled over the past few weeks. These two guys have been kind of like on different paths. He hasn't scored more than 10 half PPR points since week 10 at Buffalo. He's completely shit the bed the last 3 weeks. I mean, but he's been getting the work. So, I mean, 16 touches last week. The week before, 21 opportunities, only turned into 7 points. The week before is a good matchup. I think because of the matchups, I'm going to leave a chain. I'm going to lean a chain in Javonte. But I'm definitely going with the chain. How you guys feeling?
Oh, it's so tough. It's so tough. I've been a Pollard, in my biggest league, I drafted Pollard and I've been dealing with that all fucking year. I bitch about it every single week in the writers chat, like clockwork. trying to have this man produce points for me. I think even in a tough matchup, I'm going to go Pollard just because Javonte Williams has not scored a rushing touchdown this year, which is kind of bonkers to me. He has had 2 taken off the board the past 2 weeks, which doesn't help. But not to say that he can't. Maybe this is the week he finally does it. But we've seen a player not score a touchdown for a very long stretch, and he started scoring touchdowns lately, and that's Tony Pollard. And he's just dominating. He's dominating the snap share. He's dominating the touches in that backfield, as is Javonte Williams. But what Tim alluded to is that Pollard is in a better offense, and I'm going to take the better offense even in a worse matchup like Philly and rolled the dice on Pollard. He's got a pretty decent receiving floor, and he's been finding the end zone, which is different than Javonte Williams lately. So I'm going to sit Javonte Williams in this case, but it's very close for me.
I'm going to slightly lean Pollard as the sit here, but I wouldn't be surprised if both these guys finish with like the exact same amount of points. Like if you look at their rushing game logs and their receiving game logs, and you just take away the touchdowns, which for both players has been very like non-existent, it's almost identical. Like when you just kind of glance at it, it doesn't mean that like just because of that this game will be the same thing. But like, yeah, like Pollard in a bad matchup is just about the same as Javonte in a great matchup. Yeah, I mean, it's like a coin flip. I would slightly bench Pollard, but he could also just sneak in 2 touchdowns here.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned that Pollard 15th in my rankings, Javonte 17th. So, all right, Charles Kearney, stuck in my flex spot. Should I be flexing Spears or Gus? For me, I was flexing Gus. That's the one that one of them has been involved in the offense. One of them hasn't been as involved in the offense. I'm going with Gus for sure.
I suppose so.
Yeah, I mean, I agree as well.
Yeah, it's not fun. Neither play is really sexy. I have some concerns about Gus Edwards. The last game we saw everybody healthy before the bye. He actually played the least amount of snaps out of all 3 running backs between him, Justice Hill, and Keaton Mitchell. And they used a shit ton of Justice Hill in the red zone. They used a whole bunch of Justice Hill in the red zone for some reason. Maybe the guy just needed a break. I don't know the deal, but you got to start Gus, hoping it gets back to if they're in the red zone, he's rushing the ball type deal. Because he scores a touchdown and he probably puts up 85% of Spears' day. So I would go Gus Edwards, unless you're taking a gamble on like Derrick Henry being out or limited. But I think I'm going Gus as well.
Yep.
All right, this is a tough one, guys. Hanson De La Garza, what's up, my brothers? Need help in my flex. First of all, congratulations for this being your flex decision. Based on whether, would you guys rather go Nico Collins or would you rather start Austin Eckler, Jet McKinnon, or DJ Moore? I think for me, I'm sitting Nico Collins. I'm not trying to play a wide receiver against the Jets. As a person who watches the Jets closely every week, plus a fantasy analyst, I can tell you they're the worst matchup, and it's not just the numbers that are saying that. They're the worst matchup. Like, these guys shut down wide receivers. You got Austin Eckler, it was mentioned this morning that he's going to split carries with Isaiah Spiller and
Josh Kelly.
And they're going to ride the hot hand. The thing about that is that Austin Eckler is most likely to have the hot hand out of them because that's a group of scrubs outside of Austin Eckler. Jet McKinnon, we talked about him. Is he going to be the guy that gets the touchdown carries? Is he going to be involved in the running game, or is he just going to be kind of like what he was last week? And you got DJ Moore, who when what's his name plays Justin Fields, DJ Moore has been playing well. He's been putting up points. For me, if you need to win, I know it's ugly maybe, but I'm putting Austin Eckler in my lineup. And if for the most part, like, this is not the greatest analysis in the world, so my apologies, but if I sit Austin Eckler and he scores 20 points, and if I sit the other guys and they score 20 points, I would not be able to live with myself through the offseason had I sat Eckler. So I'm going to go with that kind of logic of, like, I'm still playing my stud because he still has a chance to be that stud. Even though I understand why you're going the other way.
I'm very like I can't say what I'm a subjective person all the time when it comes to, like, I'm not super analytics based. I will do shit like that. I will make decisions and give people advice based on that shit. And that's because at the end of the day, 85% of it is random, but nonetheless, I'm going DJ Moore. Um, like you said, with Fields in the lineup, Fields knows how to get him the ball, and DJ Moore is a wide receiver one with Justin Fields in the lineup, and now he gets a plus matchup in the Lions, which I'm pretty sure he just went 7 for 96 in a touchdown against a few weeks ago. I think he has. We know Eckler has a high ceiling. But I think DJ Moore has as high of a ceiling, if not higher. And I think his floor is 10 PPR points. And I'm not sure I can say the same about Austin Eckler at this point with what we've seen lately. So I'm going to go DJ Moore in this situation. And then Austin Eckler, and then Nico Collins.
Just want to throw this in there for you, bro, because you're talking about him being great with and we're not joking. Last 2 weeks, wide receiver 6 overall, wide receiver 9 overall in PPR. He's put up 22 plus points in each of those weeks, 96 yards or more in each of those weeks. This is a guy who gets open, gets the ball from Justin Fields, and produces. So if you're going to start anyone outside of Eckler, I agree with you. I think it's DJ Moore here. How are you feeling about that, Demi?
Yeah, no, I'm not even considering Eckler. No, I am considering Eckler because his absolute ceiling. Like, he had a streak where he was like a top 5 RB, if not like a top 3 RB, based on touchdowns. It's not like touchdowns are like unable, like he can't gain them anymore just because he may look like not that great. But man, DJ Moore with Justin Fields, he is a wide receiver one. I am not going to bench him against, like you said, Nick, a team that he just thrashed that is very exploitable. Like, the Lions defense ranks very well. And then when you see them, like that Ravens game where they were just allowing a first down every play, like, it's not that bad every week, but the Bears were kind of doing the same thing to them. Like, just very exploitable in a weird way. And man, DJ Moore, I anything that I said about this man, I apologize for, because I did not think he'd be this good with the Bears. This is unbelievable. I'm starting DJ Moore.
Yep.
All right. Let's go on to the next one here. Sorry. Constantine back at us again. Pick one, CEH, Roschon Johnson, or Chris Godwin. So right off the bat, I'm going to tell you Roschon Johnson, the trio of Bears running backs. I do not want to play any of them this week. I have 2 of them on my home league bench. I'm benching them for I benched the one for Najee Harris, which might not have been the best move in hindsight. And I'm benching for Romeo Dobbs. I don't want a part of that 3-headed, because we haven't seen the 3 of them in the field at the same time. It's either been one of them's been inactive at every point in the season. So this is the first time we're going to see them on the field. Let's see how it shakes out. Again, CEH could absolutely do nothing. Chris Godwin has been absolutely doing nothing. So it's hard to say, like this should be, in theory, an easy Chris Godwin. But when you're talking about a guy who has not finished above wide receiver 34 since week 9, and we need to notice that's wide receiver 34 is his best game. And that was against San Francisco, and he put up 10 PPR points. So I think that depending on what you need, I think I'm going to go with the upside of CEH in this matchup.
Yeah. For me, it was CEH without thinking, honestly. And not like we've talked about already numerous times. Not like he's some smash matchup or anything, but I've always thought he was a pretty good player that got a lot of shit. Like, I feel like he produced pretty solid in his rookie year, and like it wasn't as good as people thought, so everybody hated on it, and he didn't get the usage. So I still think Edwards-Helaire is a good player. Not that like I'm just going on a tangent, which I probably shouldn't be at this point, but yeah, I'm going Edwards-Helaire. Godwin is a non-factor, and Roschon Johnson, you hope he gets the receiving work, I guess, but how often is Justin Fields going to dump off? I'm not totally sure. He got like 4 catches or something the last time, which elevated his day, but I'm going to go Edwards-Helaire here pretty easily.
How you feeling about that, though?
Yeah, I think I'll go with you guys on Hilaire. Like, I want to sell myself on Chris Godwin, but the production speaks for itself. It doesn't matter if he plays the most wide receiver snaps and runs the most routes like he did last week. If it leads to nothing, it leads to nothing. Like, that's just the reality. And I'd rather take a shot on a guy who can score.
Isaiah Simpson says full PPR. Still rocking with Pierce over Zay Jones with Trevor playing and Odell. I don't know what he means by Trevor playing and Odell. Is it like, are you starting Pierce over Zay Jones?
I would start Odell. I'm assuming that's Damian Pierce.
Yes,
right?
yes. I mean, I think that's
I would start Odell over Damian Pierce, and I would consider starting Zay Jones over Damian Pierce too. But I would say Odell, then Pierce, then Zay Jones is my order. I would start Odell over him.
Pierce got the goal line, and it's against the Jets, so you gotta assume that the goal line.
Well, he had four red zone opportunities, I believe, based on what Football Guys had him down at. I didn't check what Pro Football Reference had him at, but he's got to be like always in play for a touchdown right now when they get down there.
I think I'm going to lean Odell.
I'll admit it. Like, I have bias. I just think Damian Pierce sucks. So like I'm biased. Like I don't love Odell or anything, but I think it's a pretty good matchup, and I am not a Damian Pierce fan. So if you guys are, I know you said Odell, but it seemed like you guys were kind of into Pierce, so I can also vouch for that. Like, I get it; it's a good matchup, and my knock on Singletary is why Pierce is viable. So, you know.
All right, let's go into the next question. The question is full PPR: Gerald Everett, Kyle Pitts, or Brevin Jordan. I think I'm going to put this one at. So in my current rankings, I have Pitts as the lowest here. Brevin Jordan got a lot of work last week, and he's in a good matchup against the Jets. The passing volume might go to the middle of the field. I think that I'm going to lean Brevin Jordan in this game, but I will say this, and I'm just looking at my rankings now. Legitimately, my rankings are Brevin Jordan at 10, Gerald Everett at 11, and Kyle Pitts at 13. So these guys are all within 4 spots of each other. So I kind of feel I'm going to go with the upside of Brevin Jordan against the Jets because he did get that work last week. Demi, how you think about that? Oh, go ahead. Nick.
Demi can go. You can go first.
Yeah, like I don't feel like there's a guy that stands out the most to me. I understand like why you want to go with Brevin Jordan. I don't think he's like a bad player or anything. Schultz should be out again, right?
He's out already, yeah.
He's confirmed out for a while. Man, that's rough. Everett has like a slightly better matchup, but also I also don't like think that his ceiling is that high. Like I don't think he's shown it in a while that he's going to be the guy. Like it's just Keenan Allen being hyper targeted. You know, Quentin Johnston's starting to get a lot of opportunities, just dropping them. I think I will go Brevin Jordan here just slightly, but I'm not expecting much out of these guys.
Yeah, I would go Brevin Jordan, Everett, and then Pitts.
Excellent. All right, let's go to the next question here. Sorry, a little slow here. Michael, this sly son of a bitch. Michael, in a game against me. Hall, Walker, or McKinnon, half PPR, start 3. Start 2 out of 3. I guess I'll start. I got to tell the truth. That's Michael and mine's. Am I lagging to you guys? Maybe you should start off.
No.
I'm lagging here. Oh, no, we're good?
Yeah.
All right, so me and Michael, we have a rule that says we can't give bad advice if we ask each other about our matchups on the pod. So he's doing here. For me, I'm still playing Hall and Walker. From him, it's just McKinnon is just still too unknown for me, although I see the argument for all 3 of them. But I'm still going to lean Hall and Walker here because got to play your studs.
Yep. Me too.
Yeah, I'm not benching Walker for McKinnon, even though his upside is tremendously higher.
Johnny in a matchup for a bye, Dobbs or Browning. He has Kyler on bye. I'm going Dobbs here. Like this one, I know Jake Browning did have a good game. We talked about it a little bit earlier in this exact same matchup. So, and you guys convinced me to go Dobbs at the end of the day. So I'm going Dobbs.
Yep.
I'm going Dobbs too.
All right, let's go to the next one. Garrett Irwin, Cade Otton, or Jawan Johnson. So it should be noted that Taysom Hill, it was rumored that he was going to be out, and now he is officially out. So that is official. Jawan Johnson looks like the only tight end there. Because of that, I'm going to go with Jawan Johnson here in this matchup. How about you guys?
Sounds good to me. I don't want to start Cade Otton really ever. So I don't want to start either of these guys ever. But I think Jawan Johnson in a pretty good spot. Likely no Shaheed if he hasn't been ruled out already. Like you said, no Taysom Hill. So I think there's a pretty decent volume floor that we could see today.
Yeah, looking at his game logs, he's not like tremendous, but I'd rather take the shot on him just for the upside.
Andrew, good morning, Andrew. Pick 2 full PPR: Swift, Garrett Wilson, Cortland Sutton, Cooper Kupp. I'm guessing, or Amari Cooper, probably Amari Cooper. Drake London and QB. Fields or Love. 6-point throwing touchdowns. Ooh wee. Cowboys just added Micah Parsons to the injury report with an illness. Expected to play tonight. If anyone's ever tried to play with the flu, if that's what he has, that affects your play. So interesting turn of events there. Should be noted. This one's a tough one for me, man. How did you guys have a? Do you guys have a feeling either one side or the other here?
I mean, I think I'm starting Fields over Love for the quarterback question, even in 6-point tutties. And then for the pick 2, it's probably shit. I'm a bit scared of the Amari Cooper situation. Cortland Sutton, I'm trying to figure out myself. I don't think Drake London is an option for me. I think I'm going Swift and Garrett Wilson for the pick 2. Even though Swift isn't in really that good of a matchup either, but he's just in a good offense and has a pretty decent role on that team. So I'm going to go Swift and Garrett Wilson.
How you feeling, Tommy?
I'm still trying to dissect this question. Well, like I said, I'm with Nick on Fields here. Man,
I think
London has a good matchup. Sutton should have a pretty decent matchup. Like
Swift and Sutton is where I lean. I think Garrett Wilson, his ceiling is capped. Amari Cooper coming off the concussion with Joe Flacco in a game that's supposed to be not greatest weather. I'm going to avoid him. Drake London doesn't have the best matchup either. I know a lot of people in the industry are kind of like on the Drake London train this week. I get it, but I'm not going to put my season on the line on the arm of Desmond Ridder. It's just not going to happen. I'm lower than consensus on Drake London this week in a matchup against Tampa Bay, which has been mid. So I'm going to go with Swift and Sutton here. And Sutton just keeps finding the end zone. I'm going to hope he does again.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to have to go as well.
All right, let's go to the next one. Alejandro, we're 20 minutes above, but we are still answering questions, so get them in. Yeah. Let's have a great day. Thank you, Alejandro. Jake from IT. Always a pleasure, Jake. How are we feeling on Kupp in the Water Dome today? Any other option would be Jordan Addison. I'm not sitting Kupp because of weather. The wind is not supposed to be there. Big said it. I agree. Like, yes, it's going to rain, but it's not supposed to be anything windy or anything like that. So I wouldn't overrate that, especially with a guy with a freaking cannon like Matt Stafford. I'm not going to overrate that situation. This is a hard one. Alex Shull says Saquon, Swift, or a chain. Full point PPR.
Always A-Chan, man.
Yep. I think until it fails me. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's like you got to ride A-Chan until he does. But like when you're
Saquon
talking about,
does have a really good matchup.
Yeah, it's Saquon, bro.
Is it though? Over a guy who can get like 200 rushing yards and a touchdown. Like I get the Titans' running defense is like their strength, and like Tua should just throw for 500 yards on them, and like embarrass the heck out of them. Like, but man, I
want to go Saquon.
I get it. It makes sense. I'm sticking to my A-Chan guns though. Until he fails me, he's got to be in my lineup.
All right, next question. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this guy here. Cortland Sutton or Brevin Jordan? PPR tight end premium. Do you have? Where are you leaning? This is obviously big, by the way. Where are you leaning? Where are you leaning, man?
I have Brevin Jordan in right now. I picked him up to block somebody to be a dickhead. And then I looked at the matchup and the situation, and I'm like, you know what? Brevin Jordan might actually be a pretty solid play. And I'm starting Russ. So if I've started Cortland Sutton every week this year. So I have Russ, I have the connection, but I also have Javonte. So I have Russ, Javonte, and Cortland Sutton. I have Kyler on bye. So it's like, do I want to put all my eggs in the Broncos basket, or do I want to diversify a little bit, put Brevin Jordan in there, who I think, had 3 catches for like 60 yards last week and on 5 targets. And it's kind of like, the way I view it is, if his name were Dalton Schultz, would people be starting him? And I feel like people would be starting Dalton Schultz over Cortland Sutton in this situation. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I want to go Brevin Jordan. But it's like, if Russ is going to throw touchdowns, who's he going to throw them to? Fucking Cortland Sutton. So it's kind of like, I'm playing it safe, but I also think he has some pretty decent upside. So
I say because it's PPR and tight end premium. Tight end premium is 1.5. That's what. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Brevin.
I'll still go Sutton.
Sutton.
We haven't helped him at all, ladies and gentlemen. Is that a Tom Brady?
This is Josh Gordon. This is Josh Gordon back here.
Oh, Josh Gordon. Okay. All right.
Yeah, sign Josh Gordon jersey.
Nice, because I was gonna say it looks red from here. I was like,
it kind of looks like a Bucks
Patriots fan have a Bucks Tom Brady jersey behind you? Like, what is happening right now? Benjamin, my bad, gents. Meant 2 from earlier. So 1 of Gabe Davis, Jaden Reed, CEH.
Oh, because that was the question where we chose Brandon Cooks. So one of these guys also. Okay. Probably Gabe Davis, just because. I mean, you guys might disagree. I know Nick likes Jaden Reed. I know you guys like Hilaire, and I don't blame you at all. But man, Gabe Davis, like, any opportunity to score like 100 yards and a touchdown, even though he could put up a goose egg, like, I don't know. It's hard to bench that with the playoffs on the line, probably.
I think it depends on what you're looking at. Go ahead, Nick.
I'd be going Jaden Reed. We know Gabe Davis's floor is literally fucking 0 points. So that's tough. That's really tough. We also know what his ceiling is. Big game, big play Gabe or whatever the fuck. So like we know he can pop off on any given week, but I think Jaden Reed has an opportunity to do it this week on Monday Night Football against the Giants. And Gabe Davis very well might and probably will against the Chiefs, just because he has an affinity to do it against them. But I'm not starting Gabe Davis when I have what I think is to be a better option, and that is Jaden Reed. I would start Gabe Davis over Edwards-Helaire in this circumstance, however. But I'm going Jaden Reed over Gabe Davis.
I think for me, it's about what do you need? Do you need a blow-up game? Do you need 20 points? If that's the case, start Gabe Davis. I think if not, if you're trying to play it a little safer, I think Jaden Reed is where I'm going to go there. But I think that's how I'm looking at it. If you need a big blow-up game, Gabe Davis has had those games against the Chiefs. So there's something to be said about that. Santiago, literally, you know what's funny? I got my phone right here next to me because I'm using the app and everything. And Cass is in our home league. So my main league, Cass is in it. And he just asked Conklin or Otten, and then he said or Brevin. And as he sent or Brevin, I got an alert on my phone that says Cass has picked up Brevin Jordan and dropped Dustin Hill. So obviously listening to the live stream, Cass. I got to say or Kyle Pitts. Right now, the way I have it ranked, I have Brevin Jordan over all those guys. And I will say this too, I have a significant interest in Cass losing and scoring the least amount of points that he possibly can this week. So I will say that. But again, we made a promise. We're not going to let that affect us. I think Brevin Jordan is a good play. I have him at tight end 10 in my rankings this week. I think that, especially over a guy like Conklin, who is a part-time tight end with 2 other tight ends, Otten, who plays every snap but doesn't get targeted, Pitts, who's been the Pitts, and Brevin Jordan. I think I'm going to go with the upside of Brevin Jordan, especially considering that they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit against the Jets defense, and they're going to have more of an opportunity to do that in the middle of the field against the tight end. Tight end has killed the Jets because the outside receivers have just not been open. So I feel like Brevin Jordan is in for a good game.
Yep.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So that's it for the questions. If you have any other questions, I got to ask you guys a question on the personal note, though. This is from me right here. All right. So I need to win, and I'm starting Romeo Doubs. So I don't know if you guys consider stacks. Both play Monday night. Both have good matchups. Love at the Giants. Tua against the Titans. How are you feeling? Who are you guys starting?
I'm going Tua. Because you know what? I have this exact predicament in a different league, and I went Tua. I don't have Dobbs though. And I do have Tyreek. So you talk about stacks. I'm giving myself a stack, but I think generally I would go Tua just because the upside is just so huge, man. Love has been playing his ass off the past few weeks. And you do have that stack, so I get it. But I just think the upside of Tua, even though maybe his floor is a bit lower than people like to think because of the games that they do blow everybody out of the water, and then the back half of the game is just running the ball and nothing else really, small passes to get first downs and then running on first and second. So I totally understand it, but versus the Titans, man, like he could throw for 600 yards if he wanted to, bro. So I'm going Tua.
What do you think?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I thought his floor would be a lot worse. His lowest is QB 26, which granted is not that great. It's pretty bad. However, man, this is like the premier passing matchup. Like I genuinely think Tyreek Hill, if they wanted to risk him, he could break the receiving yards record in a single game. Like, is there a way for me to bet 300 plus yards? I'm not going to do it. That's like stupid, obviously. But I want to know if it's some book must be offering some stupid thing. Like, will he break the record today plus 10,000? Like the season long record?
Yeah.
Like, will he get 700 yards? How many does he need? Like 500? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, the Titans are.
I'd risk Tua.
The thing is with the Titans, man, it's just like the Titans. The Dolphins. Tua sometimes, man, even when they almost win, not almost. Sorry, my wife is texting me that it's time for me to get this wrapped up. So I'm a little flustered here, but sometimes they just score their touchdowns via the ground, and that's what really hinders Tua. Even when they score 35 points, it's because a chain has scored 3, and but what can you do?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say go Tua, and then I was gonna answer this question before it was even on the board because I saw it on my other monitor. I'm gonna go Breece Hall.
All right, Breece Hall, CEH or Singletary. Yeah, I'm going Breece Hall as well.
Breece Hall. Yep.
All right, guys, that's it. We got to go set our own lineups, and I got to stay out of the doghouse with my wife and the kids. So, peace out. I hope everyone wins this week. We're gonna see you next week for the playoffs. Hopefully, everyone makes it. Peace out, everyone. Happy Sunday. Happy watching. Happy fantasy. Thank you to my two guys right here, and that's it for us. Peace out, everyone.
See ya.